Hello, and welcome to the fourth and final video in the Talk Data to Me series from Counselor Connect. In the past 3 videos, we learned how to manipulate and analyze school counseling data using Excel and Google Sheets. Now we will shift gears and learn about sharing the data you collected. The objectives of this video are to identify what school counseling data to highlight and ways to share out information, understand the process of creating and sharing out your data, and feel comfortable applying this information to your own data. My name is Samantha Vidal, and I'm a school counseling professional learning specialist for Counselor Connect and Keep Indiana Learning. I am joined by Christy Vance, a school counselor at Southport High School. Now, let's get started. Oftentimes, as school counselors, we collect or analyze our data, but then we don't take the next step to share this data with stakeholders. Whether this is due to lack of time or lack of confidence, sharing your results doesn't have to be cumbersome or intimidating. Let's learn some new strategies you can easily use at your school and in your district. First, we have to understand why sharing data is important and effective. Sharing your school counseling program's results can provide more awareness of what you do and give a better understanding of the role and effectiveness of school counselors. This can lead to more support from staff, families, and other stakeholders in your community. The support can then lead to awareness of gaps or lack of resources to make an impact. If stakeholders don't know about it, they cannot help. Sharing results is also a good habit to promote our own intentional reflection on our interventions, and it helps to drive future efforts. Sharing data doesn't have to be a big, fancy production or the culmination of everything you did for the school year. Instead, consider different ways you can share throughout the school year. You could summarize data quarterly, by semester, or at the end of a specific intervention, like a small group. You can share bite-sized nuggets throughout the school year, or make this process your own with a combination of all of those. When it comes to where and how, think outside the box about where and how to share your data. It doesn't have to always be a formal report. Find ways to use your data on bulletin boards, in newsletters, send emails to staff, use data during your administrative conferences or evaluations, present data to your advisory council or even your school board. Think of other ways that you might share data in your own school and district. It is important to know your audience when you're sharing data. What is the purpose of sharing? Who do you want to see it? We know that teachers do not have the time and often the interest to sit down and read a 5-page school counseling report. There are so many different types of data you could share, but you don't have to share all of them all of the time. Again, know your audience and pick wisely. The biggest points to consider when you're sharing data are: what did you do? Why did you do it? And how are students different as a result? For example, we found out 6th grade boys had the highest discipline incidents, specifically for aggression. We had a small group about emotional regulation, and 6th grade male discipline incidents for aggression dropped by 10% for the next quarter. That gives an example of what we did, why we did it, and then how it impacted outcome data. Okay, and now I will hand it over to Christy, and she will give some examples of this in action.
One of the easiest and most common ways to share data is through some sort of digital file, like a document, image, or presentation. While these 4 tips may seem obvious and simple, it really is easy to get lost in the weeds or struggle getting started if you don't keep these in mind. Tip number 1, know what you're sharing and keep it simple. Sam just shared several reasons why we may be sharing data and different approaches to when we may be putting our data out into the world. Without making these decisions first, you will soon be overwhelmed on how to get it all in or have no direction at all. Narrow down your who, what, when, why, and how. Tip number 2, use a template. No matter what program you're using, templates exist for most. Search through the programs menus, Google, Etsy, etc. Canva is super popular right now and free to educators with a ton of free quality content. So we're going to use that here shortly for some examples. While there may not be a ton of school counseling specific templates out there for this type of sharing, there are some that are easy to manipulate to get what you want, even if you aren't comfortable with technology. Once you manipulate a template, you can reuse it by replacing just the information, which is a huge time saver. Tip number 3, keep it visual. Unless you're doing a comprehensive end-of-year report or an in-depth analysis for a target audience, keep it basic. Know that your audience likely has limited time and isn't as invested in the content as you are. Don't lose your audience by making this word heavy or difficult to understand. Use visuals that communicate your impact at a glance. You don't have to have elaborate charts and graphs. Even large numbers can be visual. Tip number 4, make sure you're sharing efficiently. Think about how you want people to get this content and how they will most likely be looking at it. Will you be printing it to pass out or to display on bulletin boards or in restrooms around the school? Will you send it as an email or as an email attachment? What format do you want that attachment to be? Will this be a handout at a staff meeting? Make it easy to consume and access for your audience. I'm now going to share my screen and we're going to jump into Canva. To show a few things related to these tips. Again, these tips can be applied no matter what program you're using, just using this one because of its popularity right now. If you don't have an account, it is free for educators. If you go to canva.com/education, you can go under the Get Verified link for teachers and follow those steps to get yourself set up. There is so much to this program. So as I'm going through these tips, there are a lot of things I am not going to touch on, but we're going to show a very few specific things related to our tips today. First, let's talk templates. On the home screen, you can select templates on the left menu and browse here. For example, I can go down to education, open this menu, look at by grade, by subject, by resource type. I'm going to start with subject, looking for something that might be school counseling-ish. I don't really see anything. So I'm going to check under resource type. There are a few things here that might strike my interest, and I'm going to start, I'm just going to click on newsletters. It's going to open up so many newsletters, and this might be similar to what I want, but of course it's clearly not meant for data. But if you like the style of something you see, you'll find out shortly it's really easy to manipulate. Another way to look at templates from your home screen is here in the middle. So in this search bar, when I click on it, I can either look through my own projects or search templates. I'll start by putting in school counseling and just search that phrase. And you will see a ton of content that's already been shared and created related to school counseling. As I scan, kind of knowing that I'm going to be sharing some school counseling data on a small group, that's the example for today, I don't really see anything that's tailored to that. So I might just try, let's add data and see what happens. Scroll through, still not really seeing what I want. I'm going to drop this school counseling bit and search data infographic. So you just try different search terms to get something that's in the direction that you want. I like that with this search, I'm starting to get some graphs, some bar graphs, some narration and things like that. So I like this category. If you see one that you want to choose, like in this case, I like this data infographic here. Actually, I'm going to use this one. I can just click on that template and I can choose to customize the template here. You can also see other similar examples listed. Once you choose a template and you select customize, it's going to open that in your own projects. So now this is my file. I can go to the top and I can rename it however I want. And now if I go back to my home screen, this is now listed as a project. It's not showing up right now quite yet because it's brand new, but it's listed right here in my recent designs. It's a very easy to use a template. Once you've already created something, let's say I created this design here last quarter, I can go in and make a copy of that to create an updated version and just insert new data or information. For today, I'm going to go into this template. I actually did use that last template I just opened and just change some things around to get it to be the format that I wanted. But what I want to show you in here is everything is very simple, much like what you're used to doing in Docs, Word, and that sort of program. I can click and drag, just like a lot of other programs. I can resize. I can right click and copy or paste or duplicate. So this makes creation very quick. On the left, there are several options in Canva, but today I just want to look at elements and text. Elements would be adding things like shapes and graphics, text, adding headings, or more fancy text if that's what you want. When I'm operating from a template, I don't use a lot of these fancy text images just because they don't really match the branding usually, but they're handy when you're starting from scratch. With elements, it's very easy to add something. I can search whatever I'm looking for. Maybe I need a picture of a brain, and I can go here and look through all these different pictures. Let's say I like this one. It's as simple as clicking it and it adds it to your document. One thing I really love about Canva is how easy it is to change colors and to make things visually appealing. So if you look up here at the top, it shows you the colors in this image that I'm currently clicked on. And to change the colors to match my color scheme, all I do is click on the color and choose the replacement color. So whatever is that color in the image is then going to change to match like my template. So if I wanted it, I think that looks very strange, but if I wanted to use that, I could do that very easily. And that kind of works for anything. If I wanted to change the color of this box up here at the top, I can change the color of the box. Sometimes you'll run into an item where you can't change the color, but it's very rare. Even on graphs, I can go up here and change colors. So that's really handy. A trick that I like with color is, let's say you open this template, you really like it, but you want it to match maybe your school colors. If you go into uploads and you add a picture that has the colors that you want. So we're the Southport Cardinals. So this has like our school colors in it. I'm going to add this image. Now I'm not actually going to use this picture in my design, but I've added the image. And when I have this image selected and I right click, I can choose apply colors to design. And it completely changes my whole design to match that color scheme. If I don't like it that time, I can keep trying it, and it keeps kind of rearranging colors, which is just a really awesome little tool to use. For example, I'll do it again with a different picture. Just back up here a little bit. Maybe I wanted to make this match the Keep Indiana Learning color scheme. I apply the colors to the page. Not a big fan of that one. I just keep trying it until I get one that I like. So it does a lot of the work for you if you want to change the vibe of your graphic. If you're reusing a template over and over through the year, this is a great way to spice it up each time so your audience isn't looking at the same thing. And you really can use any picture. Say I liked these fall colors. I can go in and, sorry, I'm having weird things going on. Screen's blocking it. And I can change the colors. And then you can just delete the picture, but the color scheme stays. So it's very nice. I'm going to take this back to where I was before. Okay. On this template, we're just looking at small group results data. So we use some of the ASCA fields, but this isn't necessarily a direct copy of the ASCA report template. I wanted to share data from the group. My intended audience is maybe my building admin and the teachers of the students who are in my group. So when I first got this template, I knew I needed a bar graph. Under elements, you can search chart or graph. There's also a heading here at the top that goes to charts. I found the one that was like what I wanted. And once I added that, it popped into my design, and you can click on it just once and it opens sort of a data table over here to the left. You're not going to have quite the freedom with this as you might have in Sheets or Excel, but it definitely lets you create a visual. As you can see, you can just enter in the data here and it updates on your graph. It's super easy to use, just clicking in the boxes. I typed in my pre and post survey questions here, and they're showing at the bottom. I explained in the heading what the ratings meant. If this was mine that I was sharing, I'm not a huge fan of how small these are. And when I played around in the settings, there just wasn't anything that like that takes them away, but then they're completely gone. So I don't like that either. So what I decided to do, or what I would decide to do, is probably just delete it from my data table. And then I would probably create a text box here just to make my own heading. So I'm going to copy, I like this font and this size. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it. I'm going to drag it down. So you can see I'm moving things around and resizing just like I would in maybe Google Docs. I know how to keep, no, wasn't I know how? I keep track of my assignments in my agenda. And then again, just like Word, I can center it, I can highlight it and make it bold. And I would probably go through each of these questions here and switch it to make it a little bit more readable and larger than original. As I went through this chart, the bar graph is pretty easy. Here, I really just had to think about how is my data best shown. And I decided to use this graph to show how many students had 4 Fs, how many had 3, 2, and 1, and then how that changed Q2. Again, I just entered the graph. And I think in this one, there were originally, it looked something like this. There were like 4 rows. I just didn't need that because I was working with 2 quarters. So it was as simple as just deleting it and the image updates. Same thing at the bottom. I wanted to kind of see part to a whole on the percentage of students. And so I chose this circle graph. This one looks a little bit different. Here they ask you for a percentage. You can change other things. It's really about experimenting when you're in here. Rounded endpoints. It's, you know, it's just a visual thing. I think there was even, maybe that's not the one. Oh yeah, the percentage label I could take out as well. Here, this is an example of how you don't always need a graph or a chart to keep things visual. I just wanted to show that the percent change had gone down, or that the percent change went down. So I just used a down arrow. This is where I went over to elements. I searched, I think, arrow, and looked around for something that I liked. Another thing that's kind of cool about image searches, if you sort of like the style of something, you can click on these 3 dots and choose similar to this, or let me see, not everything has it, but see more like this. And it shows you some other things in that style. So if you're not an artsy person or a visual person and you feel like you need some direction with that, those tools come in really handy. Lastly, when it comes to sharing, Canva has a ton of options. So if you are a big tech person and you use some of these programs with your school or personally, it's definitely worth exploring how they can connect with Canva. I use Canva I don't know, a medium amount, but most of the time I am just choosing share and download. And when I do that, I'm either saving as a PDF or as an image. Something to keep in mind, if you are going to print this, you want to make sure your starting size is proportionate to a piece of paper that you're printing on. If I were to save this as a PDF now, because it's a longer document, it's going to kind of squish onto a size of a piece of paper. I don't usually print out the information that I'm sharing. It's usually getting sent out digitally. So I usually save as a PDF. And when you do that, it is very easy. It will download and it just shows nice and clean and it's beautiful. If you do it as an image, the same thing will happen, but then maybe you can insert it into an email instead of attaching it onto an email. The biggest thing I think when sharing is just keeping in mind that not everyone has a Canva account. So make sure you don't do something like sharing it within the program or opening it as a Canva attachment. Make sure you just save it in a way that anybody can access it. If you've never worked in Canva, it's worth a shot. It's very user-friendly. The key is just giving yourself a little bit of extra time at first. You can keep it super simple, or you can really dive in and get down in the nitty-gritty with it. Once you've created one small group report, for example, like this one, it's really easy just to go back into this same document again, change some colors, change the data, add a few different graphics. It will take you way less time and you're ready to go. I am going to now pass it back over to Sam.
Okay, so now we've collected our data, we've manipulated and analyzed our data, we've shared our data, so now what? So now we need to use that data to drive our programming, our interventions, and our decisions. So what did the data tell you? Was it effective? Was it not effective? Do you need to stay the course and continue to make a bigger impact, or do you need to shift gears and try different interventions? The data can also help you to identify tier 2 and tier 3 needs, and really tier 1 needs too. And it can also help you to set goals for the next school year. It's important to be data-driven so you can meet the needs of all of your students and show your impact on achievement, attendance, and discipline. That's all for our video today. Thank you so much for watching. You can access resources like this at keepindianalearning.org in our digital content library. And our contact information is on the screen as well. So please reach out if you have any questions.